Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a list of some of my favorite fantasy books. Some of these I've talked a little bit about on this channel, but for the most part, I've not talked much about these. Some of these are pretty popular. Some of these are probably throwbacks to like 2019, 2018. And some of these you've probably heard a ton about, but I haven't really talked about them a ton, so I want to talk about them. These are just fantasy books that I feel like you might enjoy. So I'm going to share a little bit about why I love these and why you might. The first one on here is Rage of Dragons. Rage of Dragons came out in like 2020. I remember reading this one during COVID. It was a great time. It was when I had first really discovered BookTube and all the YouTubers were talking about it. So it was just so much fun. This one, we're following this dude, Tao. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And all he wants to do is live his life with a girl he likes and just live and die and have a happy life. You know, just your all American dream, right? Well, he tries to do that, but then tragedy strikes and he ends up deciding that that life's not for him. So, what he decides to do is he decides to get revenge on the person who created the traumatic events in his life. And the only way to get back at them is to be able to challenge them to a duel. Well, you have to be on the same, like, nobility level, like the same ranking as them in order to challenge them. So you can't have some peasant challenging a general. You know, they have some sort of structure there. Well, so Tao decides that he is going to climb the ranks of their military and get to the same level as this one dude so that he can challenge him. With this one, we have this really interesting world. This is definitely not in our world. This is a wild world where you have all kinds of like weird magic. It's almost like you have this like demon realm sort of thing where you can like enter into and you're like fighting off these little demon thingies. But they're not like real, but they will still kill you. So it's super weird. And I haven't even read this in forever. So my description may be a little bit lacking. But you also have these women who can kind of imbue these soldiers with power. And so, from what I remember, like they would imbue these soldiers with power, and these soldiers would like grow, and be like giants and be extra strong and extra hard to kill. And then you also have this other woman who may come around like once every 200 years, and she can call dragons. And so, when she calls the dragons come and they help your side and help take out the other team. Well, another part of the story is that we have a government structure already in place. Well, we have opponents from the bordering neighborhoods, nations, whatever. You get the gist. And so we're dealing with those things, but we're also dealing with like political intrigue and things like that. And I really love Tao. Tao was a ton of fun to read just because he is so determined, absolutely determined to grow and do better with the sword because he has a really good why, you know? And people will do give him crap because he does do like the dual sword thing, and people are just like, it's so played. But you know what? I loved it. It also has what is it that they call it? Like that progression fantasy, whatever. I don't know, where you like level up quite a bit, and he's got a lot of like training montages. You've got a lot of you go into like this arena and you have to like work with a team to outdo the other team sort of thing. Like a lot of like those things. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. The book is super easy to read. There is a lot of fantasy words that are made up for this specific world. So you kind of need to go back and forth to the glossary just so that you know exactly what's happening. But once you figure it out, you're fine. Just like any other fantasy book that has its own magic system and cultures and things like that. But this one was a lot of fun. It's super fast paced, high energy. I don't feel like it was boring at all. And definitely one that I should probably reread soon. The next one on this list is definitely a throwback, and that is Six of Crows. This one I absolutely loved. I devoured this. This was one of the first like darker books that I read. This is a young adult novel, so it can only go like so dark. It can't go like all the way dark, but Definitely grimdark, edgelord, whatever word you want to use. In this one, we are following Kaz, and Kaz is known as Dirty Hands or the Demon, and he is a dude who is running like his own like subsect of this like gang. He reports to a boss, but he's got like his own little men or whatever. They end up taking on a job where they have to go and kind of kidnap this dude from this impenetrable prison. And I say kidnap because they're not necessarily rescuing him because they want to use him for their own misdeeds and they don't even know this dude. Like this dude doesn't even know them. So like he don't care who they are, right? They're going to break into this prison, snatch this dude and bring him back home so that they can have his scientific knowledge for what they call like Jerda, I think is how you pronounce it. And what that does is that allows you the user, it's like a drug. And the person who uses the drug, if they've got these like Grisha powers, then it sort of like amplifies. And so they're trying to like get him so they can like get their hands on all this stuff, right? Well, so Kaz ends up having to like pick his team. And it's your run of the mill found family where he's picks these dudes and they're like having a go and on this mission, right? Well, some of them don't really get along because one of the dudes that he has joined his team is one of the like police officers that tries to find the people who have these Grisha powers and like imprison them. So it's not really great to have him on your team for that reason because he hates everybody. But he works at the prison, right? So he kind of knows the layout. And so we get him on board. We get a couple of like gun wielders and we get a couple of Grisha. And we have Inej, who is like what they call a wraith. You don't know what a wraith is. I didn't know until this book. But basically, she is like a spy. And she's super good at scaling buildings and sneaking in and out of places super quietly. That's her whole thing, right? It is so much fun. I love this. It is so dark and like gritty and like you can tell just from like the tone of the story and the writing that Lee Bardugo has in the story and like the word choices, so good. And I love her storytelling in this where you don't get everything at once, which I know is typical. I know. You're not supposed to get everything at once, but just the way that she unravels like their character dynamics and their character motivations and everything just gets laid out so well. Oh, absolutely love it. Now listen, I know she has more adult books, like what is it called, like Hellbent or whatever. I don't even remember the first one. Ninth House. I think Ninth House is the first one. Listen, just because you didn't like that does not mean that you may not like Six of Crows. Like I'll let you in on a secret. There are some people who don't believe that she wrote both books. Like they don't see it because they're so vastly different, and they love Six of Crows and hate Ninth House. Now, I don't really have an opinion because I've not read Ninth House because I don't really. It doesn't sound interesting to me, so I haven't read it. But that's what other people are saying. So if you read Ninth House and Six of Crows sounds kind of interesting, but you're like, I don't really know, just try it. Okay. If you love Ocean's 11, you might like this because it's so sarcastic and the banter is fantastic because they hate each other. But as far as like the Ocean's 11 stuff, is like we're going on missions and we have to like outsmart people. And ugh, it's fantastic. Like this book really became a comfort read for me. I had some things happening in 2019 that were just like super dramatic for me and just really broke my heart. And I read this series as a reread in order to make myself feel better. So, definitely a high recommendation here. The next one on this list is Mistborn. I loved Mistborn. I read Mistborn probably in like 2020. 2020 was when I read a lot of adult fantasy for the first time, Mistborn being one of them. And we're following this girl, Vin. And she ends up being a part of this like revolution that these people that she ends up meeting are trying to do. The world is wild. So the world in this one, it's very ashy everywhere, very gray, very dark, and this is a story told as if the bad guy has won. So we have the bad guy in power, and we're sort of living in the aftermath of that. We're following Vin as she is learning how to be a part of this revolution and kind of coming to terms with these powers that she has. She didn't know she had powers until she met Kelsier. And Kelsier kind of like trained her and pulled these out of her. And she's a Mistborn. And what that means is that you're able to wield all of the metals. And let me explain. In this world, with the magic system, you are able to like ingest different types of metals. And based on what kind of power you have, you can use that type of metal and it can like help you do stuff. Like you can like push off of a certain type of metal, or you can, I don't even know, pull it to you. It kind of just depends on what it is. And it's been a minute since I read this. But to be a Mistborn, you have to be able to use all of the metals. And of course, she's the main character, right? So she can use all the metals. Well, Kelsier is also a Mistborn. And so he kind of like pulls it out of her and like trains her and brings her into the fold. And they're trying to overthrow this government. And I love Brandon Sanderson. This was the first thing that this is the second thing that I read by Brandon Sanderson. And this is probably one of his more popular ones. This one in like Stormlight Archive, but I think Mistborn is more well loved, like overall, just because it's so good. I love this world. You've got all kinds of things happening here. You've got that whole like Ocean's 11 thing where you've got this crew that you're bringing in, and they're each playing their part, and we've got political intrigue. And Brandon Sanderson does not disappoint with his storylines and his plot dynamics. Like, things happen in these stories that you do not expect. And I've listened to some of his like writing classes, and he talks about how he when you're writing a story and the people expect like a car at the end, like Christmas morning, you're expecting a car, right? Well, they get a plane instead. And he's like, you have to do it in such a way that it's bigger and better than what they were expecting. And it is so good. I love it. I love the breadcrumbs. He is very good at giving you super tiny breadcrumbs that come to play later. And you had no idea. Like, it was a throwaway thing in the first or second book, and then it comes to play in the end. And this one is a trilogy, but it reads so fast. And it is so good. I love his writing. His writing is very direct and to the point. There are some complaints that he over explains his magic system, but I think he just does that anyways because he really likes explaining his magic systems. So if you like a hard magic system, then this is definitely a good one. If you are just like, it's magic, so it's whatever. Brandon Sanderson likes the hard magic. It's almost like a scientific sort of thing with him versus, he's a wizard. He can do magic just because. So know that going in. That way you can decide if you want to try that out or not. The next one on this list is the Sword Catcher. In Sword Catcher, we're following this kid, Kel. And the story starts off when he is a child. So this dude makes him a proposition. Come and be with the royals. Come live with the nobles. And you don't have to worry about anything at all in life. I'll teach you how to fight. I'll teach you all kinds of stuff. The only catch is that you have to be a body double for the prince, which means if they think that anything is too dangerous for the prince himself to do, then Kel stands in for him. So, like, if they go to give a speech and they've got whispers of assassins or whatever being there, and they're going to kill the prince while he's there, then Kel stands in, gives a speech, and then they dip out, right? He's literally a sword catcher. Like, his whole job is to be a bodyguard for Connor, but not in the way of like an actual traditional bodyguard. He is a body double. And so they do a little bit of magic in it to help him look completely like Connor. And they grow up together. Like, they literally have the same bedroom. Like, absolutely live in the same bedroom their entire lives. And Connor never really leaves too far from Kel because he has to. Like, that's who he turns to, his best friend, but it's also his only way of safety. Meanwhile, we have a second timeline of Lynn, and Lynn is a doctor, But she's a female, she is low society, so she gets a lot of, flack from people. And she doesn't care. She is like, I'm going to do my job anyways. And she ends up getting a hold of this like stone thing, and it helps like her heal people a whole lot better. Like brink of death, and now you're like healed in a day, kind of thing. Kind of crazy. But so their lives, her and Kel, is kind of like intertwined, and we've got some political intrigue happening. We've got secrets. We've got this dude called the Rag Picker King, and his goal, I guess, is one, he's trying to find this book that Lynn's also trying to find. They've got their own goals, but they're like sort of conflicting with ours, but sort of not. But we also don't trust them. And then Kel has been propositioned by the Ragpicker King, and Kel doesn't really like want to trust him because he doesn't want to betray Connor. And so we've got all kinds of secrets from Connor, and it's a mess. But it was really good. I really enjoyed this. I really like the ending. The ending I wasn't expecting, and it was fantastic. Cassandra Clare does a really good job. I've always loved her stories, and I think that she did a really good job with this one. I didn't super love Lynn's perspective. I loved Kel's perspective. Lynn's was fine, but Kel is where I wanted to be all the time. So we hit about halfway. And then I was a little bit more invested in Lynn's story. The next one on this list is Of Blood and Fire. This one we are following Callan. And Callan is just trying to live his life. He's your run of the mill farm kid coming from a small town. Him and his friends, they are doing this challenge thing at home in order to sort of like become men, sort of thing. Well, things kind of hit the fan, and they are kind of shoved out of their town. And they end up going on this journey with these dudes. We've got like elves, we've got giants, we've got all kinds of things. Dwarves, or dwarves in here too. It's very Aragon-esque in that way. And we've got dragons. I don't know if I said that, but we have dragons. And so Callum and his friends, they are sort of forced to go on this journey with these strangers that they don't really even know. And they're learning how to do better with their swords and increase their skills. And they're dealing with this dragon that they're trying to like deal with and figure out. And meanwhile, they've got these dudes that are on their heels that are trying to come kill them. If you loved Aragon, you will really like this first book, at least. I haven't read the second one, so I don't know how it is. But I've heard that it kind of like pulls away from the inspirations that it's based on. But this first one is definitely very Aragon-esque. And I grew up on Aragon. I loved Aragon. It's one of my favorites. So I'm not mad about the fact that it's very much like Aragon. I think that's what kept me invested a ton, was that I kind of had that connection already built in because it reminded me so much of Aragon. But this book definitely stands on its own. I really love the interactions between the characters. I loved learning about the different races and the dragons, and seeing like, when are the dragons coming? What are the dragons like? Because a lot of stories do dragons so differently. And I was really excited to hear what Ryan Cahill was going to do. It's definitely more adult than Aragon was. There's definitely a lot more language. It's a little bit more brutal. We're also following Callum's sister's perspective, where her and her boyfriend are kind of like running away from home, and they end up getting mixed up with some stuff. And there's this like animal animal companion sort of thing with her. Kind of reminds me of like a dire, but I'm not entirely sure if it is like a dire wolf. I think it's kind of like a dire wolf-esque. So I don't know. You may read it and see a whole different creature. I don't know. But I really enjoyed this. I thought this was a lot of fun. I'm actually really wanting to get to book 2. It is definitely on my list for the end of March, early April to get to this book. The next one on this list is The Combat Codes. In this one, we are following Murray and Kego. Kego is your orphan boy growing up in the streets. He ends up being discovered by Murray. Murray finds him in a like underground fighter pit thing. Kego really impresses him. Murray is a recruiter for the military, and so he gets Kego to come and be a part of the military. and he ends up being in this like military academy and learning how to be this thing called a griever knight. And so what they do in this world, instead of sending armies out to do war, what they do is they send a griever knight, which is one person who goes one on one with somebody and they fight it out. The winner, that winning side gets to determine whatever it is that they're duking out, right? Saves a lot of lives, but you got to have the right kind of fighter or you're going to lose. And so they have this academy in order to train up these griever knights. And it's very much like Harry Potter in that you have your different like sections. They don't call it houses, but I mean, that's kind of what it is if you need a reference. And so in their different sections, they are getting points, and you get points for beating people in challenges in hand to hand or in like the classrooms and stuff. And you have to be, I think you have to be a certain rank in order to like challenge people. So like you can't be a level 1 battling level 3. I think you all have to be like on the same level. I think it's been a minute since I read it, but I thoroughly love this one. I love this military academy type of thing. I love hand-to-hand combat. I love strategy, and they're learning a lot of strategy, because they kind of have to have that. I love the character dynamics. I love Kago coming in as like a street fighter. Oh, it was so much fun. I really loved it. I've heard that the author Alexander Darwin actually knows like jujitsu, and so the fight scenes and everything are very much legit. So I had a great time. Maybe you will too. The next one on this list is The Way of Shadows. This one is a young adult novel as well. This one we're following Kyler. Now, Kyler is a assassin to be. He is your typical street kid who grew up with no one, and he gets taken on by this master assassin. The master assassin, Durzo, takes him on because the kid impresses him, and he ends up getting a new name, and that's when he becomes Kyler. Now, he ends up having this like second life where he becomes Kyler completely. Nobody else knows him as his original name. He fully takes on the personality and the history of Kyler. And he is learning how to be an assassin. And so he's doing this as a spy in order to learn from these noble swordsmen who can like train him to be really good and help him build connections and help him learn how to be like undercover and things like that. Well, they end up kind of entangled in this plot to overthrow the government, and Kyler is completely unsure of like who to trust, and Durzo's unsure of who to trust because lots of things are happening, and there's a lot of secrets. There's a lot of double crossing and backstabbing. I love me an assassin book. I love any kind of book where there's a character who's learning something and they're growing, and we've got secrets, and we can't let people who we know in on those secrets. I love all those things. Like, this was a lot of fun. This one isn't going to like blow your socks off. It's definitely very traditional, typical assassin story. But I had a good time with this. I loved learning all of the ins and outs of being an assassin and how they kind of like outsmart people. And I really, really enjoyed this. The next one on this list is Kagan the Damned. I love Kagan the Damned. We're following Kagan, and he wakes up after a night of partying, and he finds out that the princes and the princesses that he is supposed to be guarding with his life have been murdered. Now, he was off duty that night when they got murdered, but it doesn't matter. He gets so upset that they were just murdered. And not only that, but his entire family is just murdered. I mean, most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And his entire nation has just been overthrown in a night. Like, one night. He went out, partied, woke up the next morning, and his entire nation has been overthrown. Like, that's how good these usurpers were. But Kagan takes it really hard, and so he ends up spending the next several weeks just drunk, absolutely hammered, like talking to a scarecrow, like gonna beat up a scarecrow kind of drunk. Like he is just wild. And then he decides that he's gonna get revenge. And so now he's having to do whatever he can to figure out who came in and overthrew this and how did we get in? Who am I going up against? He's trying to get a crew together that can like go up against this really powerful army. And it is so much fun. I love Kagan. He is so sarcastic and like broody. He's such a badass with like his blades, and he is so good. Like he is so much fun to follow. And the world for this was super interesting because you're getting a little bit of that backstory from the the nation that came in and like took over. We're getting a lot of lore and a lot of history from this nation and like what happened, and the magic dying in the world and new magic coming in. And we've got this dragon, and Kagan sees this dragon in his dreams and he doesn't know why or what's happening, but he's been seeing this dragon since he was a child. And it's just a lot of fun. I had a great time. And I think that it's different. Like it's not like your traditional fantasy. I think the author, Jonathan Mayberry, he is originally like a horror author. And so you definitely get a lot of horror elements in this. And I think that it just brings a new spin to fantasy. And then the last book on this list is Dreams of the Dying. This one I just finished not too long ago, but the world in this is wild. So in this one, we are following this dude Jesper, and Jesper is a mercenary. And him and this girl, Lycia, they get invited to the palace, and then the queen is talking to them, and she's like, "Hey, listen, my husband, who is the king, is in a coma. We have no idea why. We have no idea what happened at all, and we need you to figure it out." So him and Lycia, they go cross country. They're going to find this dream walker to bring the dream walker back to the palace and go into the king's dreams while he's sleeping in order to figure out what happened, because this coma is not like any other kind of coma. It's like killing him while also keeping his body completely healthy. Like I think he said he's been in a coma for like a month. And so at that point, like your body would be like emancipated. Like, no, not emancipated. Emaciated? He would be really skinny, okay? He would be like non nourished, all right? Sue me, I don't know my big words. But his body's not. His body is like normal. And so it's killing him, but also not killing him. And so they're like really weirded out. Jesper and Lycia, they're going to get this Dreamwalker and coming back, and it just keeps like leading them on more and more trips that they have to go do, and they have to go find more people. Meanwhile, we have a coup happening, like a little rebellion happening in our nation. We've got these, they call them the brother and sister, and they're like starting this rebellion and like causing mayhem and chaos in the streets, and it's wild. The magic is really different because you can like do different types of things depending on like what you are. Like Lycia, she is like a healer, so like she can like touch you and like do what they call a shift, and she can like heal you. And then we have this other dude who can like calm your emotions or like, tamper with your emotions. And then we have the dream walker who can like take themselves and other people into someone's dreams and like walk around and hang out. Yeah, this other one who can like make you age. And once they make you age, like that's it. Like you're just old now. So sorry about your luck. But very, very interesting. Jesper is also seeing a corpse, and he's not entirely sure where it came from or why he's seeing it, but he sees it quite often, especially in his dreams. But he starts to see it like when he's awake and when he thinks he's awake, and it's just like haunting him. And so we're figuring out that piece of the puzzle. We're figuring out what happened to the king. We also have this other dude. It's like these interludes woven throughout where it's this dude and he's like growing up, and you're like watching him grow up and kind of like become who he is. And it doesn't reveal who that is until later. And so you get to like watch that person grow, and you're like super intrigued about it. It was a great time. I really like his writing style because it's very, very direct. Like there's not a lot of flower. Actually, honestly, I don't think any of these have very like flowery descriptive writing styles because I get lost in those and I don't really enjoy those. So I don't remember any of these having super flowery language. It's all pretty direct, like it's easy to keep up with. So I really like that because I need that. But I really like Dreams of the Dying because it's just a very different world. It's very like horror like. I don't know if it's classified as fantasy horror, but it definitely probably should be because it's a little bit dark and it's a little bit cool. And I love the discussion regarding like the political intrigue and the effect that the government has on the everyday people and the effect that has on people. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, guys, that wasn't a long list, but I definitely spent forever talking about some of those. So hopefully one of these intrigued you. Have you read any of these? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.